Yesterday Upon the Stair by Pit Viper of Doom. Chapter 54. Izuku is in for several surprises the next time Night Eye calls him and Togeda in for an office meeting. For one thing, it's not just a meeting for members of Night Eye's agency. Hiroshima is there, along with Amajiki-senpai and their internship supervisor, the hero Fatgun. There are a few others that Izuku somewhat recognizes, faces from other agencies, even Aizawa-sensei is here. For another, there's the topic of today's meeting. My colleagues and I have suspected for a while that the separate cases we've been pursuing are linked, Night Eye says with a respectful nod to Fatgum. Today the test results came back on the quirk suppression bullets recovered from Fatgum's recent encounter with villains, and he was good enough to share them with me. Not just my encounter, Fatgum breaks in. My fine young interns did most of the encountering, in fact, and did quite well for themselves. Amajiki tries to sink lower in the scene until Togeda gives him an encouraging nudge. The meeting is somewhat informal, at least by Night Eye standards, so there's not much of a seating arrangement. Fatgum actually encouraged the interns to sit together, which is fantastic because office meetings are so much easier for Izuku to sit through when Kirishima is next to him. I don't think I need to remind you all that the information I'm about to divulge must not leave this room except through the appropriate authorized channels. Night Eye's hawk-like gaze settles briefly on Izuku and Kirishima. And if talking about the policy doesn't convince you, then keep in mind there's a little girl on the line. Kirishima stiffens. Izuku sits up a little straighter in his seat. The look that his classmates shoots him promises questions in the foreseeable future. Thanks to my intern's efforts, we were able to retrieve broken and intact bullets from the scene. Fatgum continues with a proud grin at Kirishima and Amajiki, and therefore we could send the quirk-suppressing serum to labs for analysis. Do we know the serum's chemical makeup then? One of the other heroes asks. Or how the villain synthesized it in the first place? They didn't, Night Eye says grimly. At least not in the way you're thinking. Izuku looks at him, shocked. This has to do with Overhaul, or Night Eye wouldn't be involved at all. Does this mean he isn't the one making quirk-suppressing drugs after all? He shoots a quick glance at Togeda, but his upperclassman seems just as startled as he is. Upon analysis, the contents of these bullets proved not to be synthesized chemicals, Night Eye continues. At least not entirely. That is chemical modification, presumably to refine it, but the serum is largely biological, composed of blood and cells. A leaden pit lodges itself in Izuku's belly, heavy dread pressing him down into his seat. As some of you may know, my own interns encountered a young girl fleeing capture from Overhaul. Night Eye continues. They were able to extract her, and she is currently recovering in a location that I will not disclose at this time. The cells in the bullets are a perfect match for her DNA. Izuku can feel his heartbeat in his ears. The sounds around him turn muffled as if everyone is speaking underwater. His eyes are fixed on Night Eye's grave face, and when he turns to Togeda again, the latter is staring at him in horror. But why? One of the other heroes asks. Of all the ways to create a drug like this, why make it out of some little girl's blood? Izuku's teeth grind. It's likely that it's something to do with the quirk, which we haven't discerned yet, Night Eye answers. He sounds tired. She's currently suppressing it, most likely due to the trauma. Fatgum gets to his feet. If this is the case, then finding and detaining Overhaul is of the utmost importance, he says. She isn't safe until he and his organization are off the streets. We also have the rumors to think about. Aizawa-sensei speaks up now. Underground heroes and their informants have heard whispers of Overhaul meeting with the remaining major figures of the League of Villains. With all for one gone, they'll be looking for new ways to remove heroes' quirks from the equation. As Izuku puts his hands under the table to hide how his nails dig into his palms, Night Eye nods. We are no longer accepting a rotation of nurses. Her current caretakers remain on site, and the building is under heavy surveillance to prevent Toga Himiko from infiltrating by replacing one of them. We'll also be moving sites in the next few days, because one of the cameras outside caught a man whose physical build is a bit too similar to Compress's. There are other measures. Izuku hears no more of the discussion because as soon as Toga and Compress come up, his ears are already roaring. A gentle nudge from Kirishima makes him look over at him just in time to see his mouth form the words, "You okay?" Izuku nods, not trusting himself to smile. It seems like just yesterday that he reassured All Might over this very thing, that for once he would face an enemy who wasn't the League of Villains. As soon as the meeting is over, Izuku leaves his seat and heads for the nearest empty hallway. He just needs to get his head together. If he doesn't, then Night Eye might notice, and Izuku can't be sure he won't remove him from this assignment for getting emotionally compromised over it. The pounding in his ears has barely gone down when he hears a warning hiss from Ray, followed by a voice he only barely recognizes. I remember now. Izuku's heartbeat jackrabbits in his chest. The ghost is back. He's close, but Ray has him by the hand to keep him from getting too close. Quickly, Izuku takes in his surroundings and spots the nearest restroom, one of the single-stall types that can be locked directly at the entrance door. He leads the ghosts into the bathroom, then shuts and locks the door and turns to Aries' ghost. Tell me what you remember, he says. Blood, the ghost flickers. Ray lets go of him, but keeps a close eye on him in case he gets more agitated. He took her blood, other things too, bone marrow. You mean Overhaul, right? Izuku says. He took Aries' blood? This is far from new information, but Izuku needs confirmation and a coherent ghost. The ghost nods. My daughter. Izuku is glad to hear that she's not really Overhaul's daughter, but his heart still sinks. Did he do this to you? No. The dead man shakes his head and keeps shaking it as if trying to clear it. No, God, what was she thinking? What did Overhaul do? Izuku asks. He took her blood, Aries' father tells him. He wants to use it, so he took her blood. He took pieces of her again and again and again until she couldn't give any more, and then... He breaks off with a strangled sob, ducking and twisting his hands into his hair. He took her apart, Izuku says softly, and put her back together again, good as new, right? It hurts, the ghost sobs again. It hurts her so much she can't even cry anymore. Is that her quirk? Another nod. It's so crowded. The ghost trembles. Anyone who doesn't like, anyone who disobeys, he takes them apart and leaves them in pieces. Sometimes they're just a smear on the wall. Some of them won't stop screaming. Why does he want her? Izuku presses. What's in her blood? No, you don't understand. You're right, he says. I don't understand. That's why I need your help. I need to know what she has that he wants. If it's her quirk. His back hits the locked door hard enough to drive the wind from him. It wasn't her fault! The ghost screams at him until he's afraid his ears will bleed. It wasn't her fault. She didn't know. I didn't know. None of us knew. Knew what? A hoarse sob rips itself from the ghost's chest and he answers. Night Eye is reorganizing case files in his office when Midoriya finds him. Sir, do you remember the ghost I told you about? He asks, closing the door behind him. The one following Harry? There's a note of urgency in his tone, as well as a hint of breathlessness, as if he was in a rush to reach Night Eye's office. There is not, however, any trace of sarcasm, which means Midoriya somehow expected him to forget that there was a ghost involved in all of this. Yes, he's lucid enough to remember things. Midoriya crosses the room to his desk. I was right, he's your father. Night Eye stops what he's doing and looks up at this, silently urging Midoriya to continue. At first I thought Overhaul killed him to take Eri, but I was wrong. He died when Eri's quirk came in. Midoriya meets his eyes. She rewinds things. It manifested when he picked her up, and she rewound him so far back that there was nothing left of him. Night Eye already has his phone out, tapping out a quick message to Eri's current caretakers. He's lucky they won't ask him how he came by this information. His heart sinks with pity. This is always a risk in quirk society. Quirk manifestation can be a dangerous thing. No one can expect a 4-year-old child to have control of a power they've only had for a few seconds. Does he know how she ended up with Overhaul? He asks, his voice tight. Midoriya's face darkens and his mouth twists with contempt. His wife, Eri's mother, is the daughter of Overhaul's Yakuza boss. They're estranged, but when her husband died, she left Eri with them and ran off. Once Overhaul found out what her quirk was, he started torturing her. He lifts his chin. That's how the serum must work, right? He must have modified it so that her quirk would just Rewind people's quirk factors until they don't exist anymore. A logical guess, Night-Eye says grimly. He never thought he would find himself at this point, making judgments on the words of a dead man. But it's a solid lead. Could he tell you anything else? I was lucky to get that much out of him, Midoriya says. He's still not all there. Watching his daughter go through that for over a year must have messed him up. After his intern finishes delivering his information and leaves, Night-Eye puts down the folder in his hand and closes his eyes to process everything. He still isn't used to this. He's been in this line of work for 20 years, and he shouldn't be this squeamish. But something about having the dead answer back with words instead of tissue samples and DNA analysis unnerves him. Like an autopsy, he reminds himself, evidence is gathered from the dead every day. That's all that Midoriya's quirk is in the end. It shouldn't be any different from forensic science. But it is. Cadavers don't have feelings, but if Midoriya is to be believed, the same can't be said of spirits. Dark thoughts stick with him after that, even bleeding into his meeting with Eraserhead the following day. They're right at home there because the underground heroes' news is grim. They're on the move, Eraserhead says as they go over intelligence reports. The city's crawling with overall's people looking for leads, keeping watch. Foot soldiers, mostly, with a few bigger threats among them. Night-Eye passes his hand over his face. He's known this would be the case. It was obvious even before they knew the full extent of Ares' role in Overhaul's operation. But he's never been able to find hard evidence of it, at least through normal pro-hero intelligence channels. But Eraserhead is no normal pro. Underground heroes have their own methods, their own channels, their own tactics. The kind that heroes who work in the open would balk at. It means that Overhaul is making his moves on a massive scale and covering his tracks so well that he's nearly undetectable to normal police work. He says as much to Eraserhead, who grimaces. That's a problem with obsolete criminal entities, he says dryly. Yakuza are small-time symbols of the past now. They're like scenery, a backdrop to modern criminal activity. And that means the structures to keep track of their movements just aren't there anymore. Overall knows that, and he's taking full advantage of it. His lips turn up and he shows his teeth. It's a smile, technically, but there's no happiness or humor in it. Another downside to our former number one's hero's run. His words stir up the settled ire within Night-Eye. It must show on his face, because Eraserhead grimaces again and moves on. Regardless, it's taking all I have just to stay on top and ahead of them. If you could call it that. Be cautious, Night-Eye says, a bit snappishly. If you get yourself caught, it won't help anyone in the long run. A thought occurs to him then. You may very well be in danger yourself. If Overhaul's aim is to erase quirks, then yours would be of interest to him as well. Believe you me, I know. Eraserhead doesn't appear affected by Night-Eye's tone. But caution is becoming less and less effective. Overhaul's people are closing in. If they continue this way, then they'll find where we're keeping her eventually. Either by process of elimination or by catching you in the act of moving her. The only options are to take them down before they find her, or wait for her to be found and take them then. I won't use a little girl as bait for her abusers, Night-Eye grits out. Nor will I risk open war with criminals in the streets. The safety of the public is unstable enough as it is. Open war may happen whether we like it or not, Eraserhead says grimly. They can afford to now. Do you know why? Overhaul's alliance with the League of Villains may be considered hearsay officially, but in unofficial circles it's well past the point of being a rumor. In fact, it's the only reason why I've been able to track Overhaul's operation at all. The League may be quiet lately, but at least their movements are recognizable. Night-Eye clenches his teeth and says dumbly. After a moment, Eraserhead lets out a sharp sigh. All I'm saying is this. You can't keep this quiet and subtle and safe. It's going to get ugly. However it ends, we may very well lose good people by the time it's over. I can't accept that, Night-Eye says tightly. I know our worlds are different, Eraserhead, but I won't accept that. Nobody has to die here. He waits, but Eraserhead doesn't answer, so he continues. It would at least help to know who Overhaul's main contacts in the League are. Do you have any idea who that is? But Eraserhead doesn't answer. He's staring straight ahead, eyes misting over as if lost in thought. Eraserhead? Night-Eye says. The underground hero blinks slowly as if coming out of a deep daydream.
Say that again,
he says. What?
What did you just say?
Eraserhead is frowning, more present, but still deep in thought. I wanted to know who Overhaul's main contacts are in the League of
No,
Eraserhead says.
before that.
Night Eye has to think for a moment. I said that nobody has to die.
That's...
For a moment, Eraserhead just looks lost. His brow furrows, and when he speaks again, he seems to sound the words out carefully.
That's not really up to you, is it?
It's not an odd thing to say so much as an odd way to say it. For the briefest of moments, Night Eye is almost tempted to have a look at Eraserhead's fate for a clue, but it's an easy idea to squash. Are you feeling quite all right? Eraserhead shakes his head, not to say no, but to clear it.
Yes, you just reminded me of something one of my students said to me once, at the USJ no less, when the League first showed up. Things must be pretty desperate if you're starting to quote my students by accident, especially if it's that student.
The shadows under his eyes deepen. Have you slept recently? Night Eye asks, though he suspects that he already knows the answer.
By my standards.
Eraserhead answers unhelpfully. The discussion resumes and doesn't touch that topic again, but Eraserhead remains quiet and thoughtful throughout it. This time, when Izuku leaves campus right after school, Kirishima is the one to watch him leave. Now that Todoroki knows firsthand where he keeps disappearing, he barely gives Izuku's departures a second glance. This has the unexpected bonus of getting Uraraka and Ida to stop giving him weird looks too. They must assume that Todoroki worries about him enough to be a trustworthy gauge of whether or not Izuku is doing something stupid, which he's glad of, because it's hard to reassure them when security issues prevent him from telling everyone about what he's doing for his internship and why. All this just means that Kirishima's attention is that much more noticeable. Izuku returns the look with an apologetic shrug. He'll ask Night Eye later about how much he can tell Kirishima, especially since the two agencies seem to be working together on this. For now, he has a visit to make. He's a little excited today. He called his mother recently to ask about some of the children's storybooks she stored away after he outgrew them, and now 5 of them are crammed into his backpack. One of the higher-level office workers from Night Eye's agency comes to pick him up. Togata can't make the trip with him today. Night Eye has him on patrol, so he'll probably show up later if he decides to come in at all. Well, they haven't gotten Eri to smile yet. Izuku gets a text from Night Eye alerting him to a change in the watch schedule. Centipeter is supposed to be the one screening people to go in and out of the building where they're hiding Eri, but he called in for a replacement after taking sick during his watch shift. Izuku's heart goes out to him. It's well into autumn, and that means flu season is upon them. Bubble Girl is nice, though. She greets him with a smile and a light bulb joke when he's dropped off. How many ranked heroes does it take to change a light bulb? Just one. They don't like to share the spotlight. And they trade code words before she lets him through. Anybody else come through? He asks hopefully. There's a small chance Mirio has already finished up. Yep, and Centipede said the same thing when I asked him. She passes him the comm device. Here's your panic button. You know the drill. Yep, thanks. Izuku picks up his pace to jog through the lobby, adjusting the straps on his backpack. This area is usually empty. Everyone who enters knows exactly what they're there for, and the heroes at the door are the ones controlling access, so there's no need for a receptionist desk. There's definitely something to be said about secret operations. They're very efficient. Ray darts ahead of him through the first door, and he can't help smiling at her excitement. She likes being around Eri, even if Izuku is the only one who knows she's there. Sometimes he thinks she misses the days when he was smaller than her, and being around Eri reminds her of them. One of the medical technicians steps out into the hallway and spots him. Oh, hey, Midoriya-kun, she greets him. Did you need something? By itself, it's an innocuous question. There's no real reason for Izuku to do anything but offer a polite no and keep walking. And yet, Izuku pauses because it's odd. It's an odd thing to say to someone who's just arrived, who's scheduled to be here, who's walking in a straight line because he knows exactly where he's going. No, he says, almost asks. I just got here. Eri's not in a different room, is she? The technician blinks at him, confusion clouding her face. She shouldn't be, she says. Is that why you're back down here? Did you have trouble finding her?
Izuku's heart sinks low, low in his chest, so low it has to be reaching his stomach. What do you mean back?
I mean, I just spoke to you a minute ago, the technician says. If you're back down here already, then...
Izuku is already running, tearing off his backpack to rid himself of excess weight. He barely remembers calming Bubble Girl before he has his phone to his ear dialing as he runs down the hallway and makes for the nearest stairs. Night-Eye, to his credit, picks up on the first ring. I'm at the facility, he says as soon as he hears Night-Eye breathing over the line. Ray is long gone by the time he yanks the door open and launches himself up the stairs with one for all. I just got here and one of the technicians told me she already saw me pass through. Night-Eye's breath hisses as if through clenched teeth. I'm sending... Izuku doesn't hear the end of that sentence because someone knocks his feet out from under him on his way up the stairs. His phone flies from his hand and out of reach. His chin hits the corner of a step and he narrowly avoids biting his tongue. With a yell, he flips over to face his attacker and struggles to his feet, still dazed as blood trickles down his throat. The stairwell is dim, but not dim enough for his eyes. He knows the villain standing over him. He hasn't seen her since Camino, but she's unmistakable. You! He spits at Magne. Seriously? Don't tell me you people are bringing me Dagases now! Is this how desperate he is? The villain doesn't rise to his taunt. He struggles to his feet or tries, but Magne's foot comes down hard on his chest, pinning him to the stairs. With her shrew crushing him like that, you can feel her shaking. Holy shit, she grunts out. It's true. It's true. What are you talking about? It's nothing personal, she says. Well, that's a lie. It's very personal. But not against you. Her lips stretch wide with a smile, showing the blood in her teeth. Are you worried about Overhaul? Don't be. As soon as they get him the girl, he'll hand over the formula, and then, he'll be all yours. Shigaraki will wrap him up in a nice little bow for you. Maybe he'll send him in pieces. She laughs, and it's high and clear and cold. His eyes adjust further, and Magne meets his gaze. Do you understand? She asks, fixing him with her blank, dead white eyes. He has to pay first. He air compress? He killed me. And we're not like him. No one's a tool. No one's a pawn. Every one of us is in it together. And that's why he'll get what's coming to him. You heroes. Her shoe digs further into his chest. Her voice rises. You two-faced hypocrites can have what's left on a silver platter. All yours. You won't even have to lift a finger. And all it'll cost you is one little girl. Ray appears without a sound, but by the time she hits Magne, the stairwell is echoing with her howling. Magne falls apart, flickering as she screams, and Izuku scrambles up and keeps running. She makes the mistake of looking back just in time to see Magne revert back to what overall left of her. It isn't much. The next floor is Ares. Izuku hears Magne's screams and Ray's snarling forces down the sickening horror and prays it won't be too late. Ares has been quiet since Deku got here. She's almost never quiet when he's here. If anything, it's the only time she isn't quiet because when Deku comes, he brings so many things to talk about. Books, pictures, funny little movies. Sometimes he just sits and tells her stories, tells her about things and places she's never heard of before. He talks, she listens, and best of all, he lets her ask questions. She loves it. He's scary sometimes, but she isn't afraid of him. She knows he isn't afraid of anything because he's scary. No one who's that scary can be afraid of anything, and if she stays with someone who's scarier, then the people who hurt her, well, then no one's going to hurt her, right? She feels safe. She's never felt safe before. And she doesn't feel safe now. What's the matter, Eri-chan? He smiles at her again, but it's all wrong. When he smiles at her like that, it feels like his eyes are raking over her, digging under her skin and catching. Eri knows what to do around people who look at her that way. She presses her lips closed, looks at the floor, and doesn't move. Oh, don't be like that! He touches her face, and when she pulls away without thinking, he touches her again anyway, squeezing until his fingers dig into her cheeks. You're so cute and soft, Eri-chan, and you have the sweetest little voice. Eri's heart sinks low, low, low in her chest, and it doesn't come back up.
Deku doesn't touch her unless it's okay with her first, but now he is, and that means it's finally over. It's always like this with her babysitters. They're nice to her, they speak softly and give her things, but eventually they get tired of it. They stop asking and start making her do things, and Deku was better at it. It lasted longer and it felt different, but now it's back to the same all over again, and it feels so much worse because Eri forgot to be ready for it. That's such a sad face, Eri-chan. Deku frowns at her, squeezing her cheeks again. Tell you what, I brought you something that might make you feel better. Do you want to see what it is? Eri doesn't answer. People who talk to her like this never actually want her to, even when they ask her questions. Come on, I'll show you. Deku gets up and pulls at her, forcing her to her feet while Eri's stomach ties itself in knots. She raises her eyes again, and there's nothing right about the smile on Deku's face. His voice is quiet but eager, like he's sharing a secret with her. Hurry up, Eri-chan! Let's go! You'll love it, I know you will! He's tumbling across the floor in the next moment, over and over until he stops, and then Eri's view of him is blocked. Sorry, Eri! It's Deku's voice, but Deku isn't talking. He's still on the floor. His voice is coming from the person in front of her. Eri looks up and sees another Deku standing there. This Deku isn't like the first. This one looks angry. I'm sorry I didn't get here faster. You must be really confused, huh? Eri stares. Do you remember what book we read together yesterday? Deku, the one standing in front of her, asks. She nods. She had asked him about birds once, and he brought her a book full of pictures. Deku turns to her, and she sees his face fully. Would you like to try asking that one what book it was? For a moment, Eri forgets where she is and when she is. She's not sitting in the playroom with the nurse's station right outside, wearing a soft, clean robe just her size. She's out in the street, the rough ground scraping her sore feet in a dirty, itchy smock that slips off one shoulder because of a tear in the neck. Deku's face looks the same now as it did then. Teeth bared and eyes bright. Angry, but not at her. Scary, but not to her. She doesn't need to ask, Eri realizes as she curls her fingers into his pant leg. She knows which one is her Deku. The other Deku, the fake one, is standing again, smiling that wrong smile again. His teeth look sharp. Did you know I was here? He asks the real Deku. You did, didn't you? You totally knew I was here. Were you excited to see me again, Izuku? I've missed you so much. Deku is glowing. He's sparking green all over, but the sparks don't hurt even when they touch her. It feels warm. Warm and strong and safe and just a little bit frightening, but for someone else, someone who isn't her. He doesn't say anything. He just stands in front of Eri and waits. The wrong Deku's smile fades a little. You were so much fun before, he says, almost whines. But now you won't even talk to me. It's been so long, Izu-chan. I missed you. Didn't you miss me too? Even just a little. When Deku doesn't answer, his face changes. It's stretched and ugly. And not Deku's face was already wrong before, but seeing this makes Eri want to curl up small and hide. I know you did. Don't try to lie. You're special, Izu-chan. You're special to me, and I'm special to you. I know it. I can prove. Eri hears nothing more. The room vanishes. The floor, the walls, the toys and books, and Deku and not Deku all vanish. Eri is somewhere small, curled up and cramped, with no idea which way is up or down. She can't hear or see. Everything is dark and silent, closing around her, crushing her into nothing. She tries to cry for help, but she can't even hear herself scream. And then as suddenly as it started, it's over. She's back in the world again, but the playroom is gone and there are arms around her, pulling her close. Deku's arms. She's so close she can hear him breathing fast and short and noisy. She hasn't seen this hallway before. It looks like the rest of this place, but she doesn't know where it is. She's too scared to leave the place. She's too scared to leave the places she has already been, too scared of straying far enough for him to find her. She doesn't know where she is. Only that Deku is here, holding her. He got her out. He got her away from him. And when she asked him not to let go, he didn't. There's a man in the hallway before them. She can't see his face behind the mask, but she can hear his voice. The wrong Deku is gone, and the real one is beside her, breathing funny and shaking against her. He's shaking. Eri twists around to look at him. He doesn't look back because his eyes are on the man in the mask, and he won't move, won't talk, won't look at anyone or anything else. She's never seen scared before.
Ah, the man is saying. I was wondering if you remembered me. But you do, don't you?
Stay away! Deku's voice shakes.
You know I can't do that, Midoriya.
The man tells him and steps toward them.
Deku pulls back, but there's a wall in the way. But you don't have to worry, because I'm not here to take you back. I'm here for the girl, only.
I'm warning you! It doesn't just shake, it cracks like Deku's voice is breaking apart, and the rest of him is going to do the same. There's someone Deku is scared of, Eri thinks. There's someone who's so strong, so terrible that Deku can't do anything but shake and cry in front of them. She knows what that's like.
I can take you back all the same, if you make this difficult, the man says. Is that what you want? I'm afraid it would be a much longer journey, with Kurogiri out of reach for now.
He lifts his hand and Deku flinches. The man is fast and there's nowhere to run, but Deku throws her out of the way. She hits the floor and rolls, and when she looks back, Deku is gone and the man is holding a shiny marble. He sighs, annoyed, and flicks it away. It breaks and Deku hits the wall and slides down. He doesn't make any sound except his sharp, quick breathing, but there are tears on his face as he presses himself back.
You are trying my patience, the man says. You try all our patience, and I've half a mind to take you along anyway. But you've always been more trouble than you're worth. I could always use my quirk on you and leave you here. How long do you think it would take them to find you?
He steps forward and raises his hand again, and Deku shrinks back just like her old babysitters before they died. Just like his people when he's angry, just like her. Wait! She stands, and a heartbeat rattles in her chest, and her throat tastes the way it always does when she's about to be sick. But that's okay. That's okay, she tells herself, and wishes she could believe it. The man is looking at her now, she thinks. His hand hovers over Deku, and she makes her feet carry her forward until it lowers. Wait, she says again. Don't. I'll go with you.
Eri!
Deku's voice hisses and rattles out of him, but the masked man's hand comes up again, and he chokes on her name. I'll go, she says, and she's already crying, but she says it anyway. Because Deku is nice and good, and he doesn't deserve to be scared, not for someone who's cursed and broken already, not for her. I'll go if you don't hurt him. You can do it to me, but not him, please.
Interesting, the masked man says. You say that when you don't even know what I'll do, what I've been told to do. Eri, just run!
Deku sobs, but she steps closer again. You're here to take me back. She knows that's what this is. It can't be anything else. It was never going to be anything else. Right? You'll take me back to him.
To Overhaul, yes, the man says. It's part of our agreement. You understand?
She doesn't, but it doesn't matter. That's not important right now. Then it doesn't matter, she says. But you do, because no matter what, he'll put me back together. So it doesn't matter. Please don't hurt him. She blinks and she can't see them through the tears. That's probably better. Maybe it will be like shots. Maybe it will hurt less if she doesn't look.
You had such bold words before, she hears the masked man say. But look, here's a child with 10 times the backbone you have. Pay close attention, little hero, you might learn something.
She blinks again and he stands over her. His hand comes down and she shuts her eyes. It's just like before when the fake Deku tried to take her. It's like a breath of wind against her face, a cry of pain and the sound of a struggle. She opens her teary eyes right as she's swept off the ground, the masked man no longer there, and instead she's seen him almost as much as she's seen Deku, but not like this, in bright colors and a pretty red cape. Not since that first day when she ran barefoot through the streets into Deku's arms, into safety. He grins at her as he holds her out of the masked man's reach, strong and bright with no trace of fear. Don't worry, Eri, the million tells her. I've got this. You go with Deku, all right? She passes from his arms into Deku's and clings once she's there. Deku isn't on the floor anymore, but he's on his knees and still shaking, while she presses close and watches Lemillion with wide eyes, listens to him tell Deku, take her, get downstairs, there's backup, I'll handle this. The masked man staggers up, and when he talks again, he sounds breathless. Well, this has been interesting, but I think it's time I took my leave. And Lemillion grins all white teeth and shining eyes. Oh! He says cheerfully. Is that what you think is going to happen? That's all she sees before Deku carries her away and out of sight. Then Lemillion is gone, the masked man is gone, the fake Deku is gone, they're running away, and there's safety up ahead. It's okay now, they're going to be okay. So why won't Deku look at her? Why is he still crying? It's only with the help of several ghosts that Izuku makes it to the safety of Togata's promised backup with Eri. There's no room in his mind for thoughts or directions, and hardly any room in his eyes for seeing the path ahead. When the tears finally blind him, he lets Rei hold on and tow him along, follows her static and the tug of her cold hands. Magne is gone, Arai and the rest of Toga's victims are gone, and there's no sign of any more villains or their ghosts, just nice people. That is one of two reasons that Izuku doesn't fight and scream when someone tries to pull Eri out of his arms. The other reason is that he can feel himself rapidly unraveling. The marble prison still surrounds him, suffocating and small, as it closes around him and shuts him in a tiny void. The past few months may as well have been rewound, and he's back in Camino, back in the warehouse, back in the woods, screaming as Compress traps him again. He can't fall apart yet, not with Eri there to see. And what does that matter? Some small part of him thinks viciously. She already saw you fold and cry. She already saw you almost give her up to the enemy without a fight. The back of his throat tastes like bile and rot. His bones feel brittle and his blood is ice water. He doesn't have long. Someone, one of the medical staff, not Toga, Izuku checks and double-checks the ghosts nearby, watches Eri's father for any sign of distress, finally takes her from him. She clings as she's taken, holding onto his sleeves until there's too much space between them for her arms to reach. And then she's gone, and Izuku is alone, shuffled into another vehicle. Bubble Girl is the one who slides in next to him, talks to him as he stares blankly straight ahead. As Nadai's sidekicks go, Awata Kaoruko isn't bad. She's nice, and she likes him, and he kind of likes her too. Her quirk is interesting, and she's a good hero in every way. She's kind and sweet, and her jokes are terrible. There are worse people to fall apart in front of. It's too hard to hear what she's saying through the cotton wool feeling in his ears, so he doesn't try. But he does look at her, and he does ask, Is Eri gone? She can't see me? Awata frowns, looks out the car window, and shakes her head. She asks him something else. Maybe she asks him if he wants to go see her when things settle. Maybe she asks if he wants to ride in the same car with her. No, that's okay. Izuku tries to tell her, but his tongue locks in his mouth and won't let the words through. I just wanted to make sure she couldn't see. The marble prison closes in, and Izuku lets himself crumble.